What's up guys, Ted from Immersion here, and I'm back with another DM's Guild Spotlight video. This time we're going to talk about death and dying and alternatives, not necessarily in a good way, to how to deal with that. And when I say that, I mean your character has passed, and this is a different way to deal with the interesting ways to go about that don't just rely on spellcasting. So what am I talking about? I am talking about Tales of the Low Roads, Dulcimer's Guide to Death and Dying. It is $2 to purchase here on the DM's Guild, so I'll be going through it on a very high level, not going through it line by line, so that it encourages you guys to pick it up if you like what you see. A couple of things. One, it was provided to me as a review copy, so I didn't have to pay for it, but that being said, my opinions are my own. And yeah, I just wanted to kind of give you guys a heads up. So if you know much about 5th edition Dungeons & Dragons, or Dungeons & Dragons in general, but I really feel 5th edition for whatever reason more so. Dying is more of an inconvenience than any kind of an absolute. Right? You die in D&D and it's like, oh, well, better go take him to a cleric and bring him back, and you're right back out in the field, and nothing, it's basically like nothing happened. So this borrows from other types of games. They've used Fate Core, 13th Age, and Dungeon World here listed as examples of ways to break out from that to give death a little bit more meaning. Your character may not necessarily die outright, but if they come back, they're gonna come back different in some form. So, here we go. The first 2 pages, I'm gonna scroll ahead because they're basically just background information. There's a table I'm going to show you, and then I will give you an example from each one, and then we'll go through the last page, which has 2 examples of how to deal with it in real time. So basically what happens is, if you die and fail your 3rd death saving throw, the thought process is very Faerunian lore based. There's the Fugue Plane, which is sort of the limbo state, not to be confused with limbo, which is a totally different thing in the Forgotten Realms, but you're sort of in purgatory while your soul is judged by Kalimvor or whatever deity is from what. You could make this into any D&D campaign. But basically, you fail your 3rd death saving throw, and then you roll a d8 on the table below. Each subsequent time you die and come back, it adds a negative to your roll. So if you die and come back 1 time, you'd roll a d8 and -1 if you die the 2nd time. So this is, it says right here at the bottom, you can consult with your DM and let you choose, but you roll a d8 and see what happens. And there are subsequent charts as we will go through. But basically, 1 on the d8 is you die. End of story. The only spell that sort of kind of impacts a lot of this is Revivify, in that it brings you back automatically, because Revivify has to happen within a minute, so it allows you to bypass this. Or something like Gentle Repose, where it preserves the body so that you don't decay, so that spells can be cast on you at a later date. So, the long goodbye is number 1. That's when you die. Basically, it says you come back to consciousness long enough to have a final tear-filled goodbye with your party, and then you expire, unless Gentle Repose, Revivify, or something like that is cast. 2 is 'Tis But a Flesh Wound. You basically become gruesomely wounded in some form, and you suffer an effect. And basically everything has a roleplay kind of consequence and a mechanical consequence. Some of them provide you a benefit and a negative, right? Like you have advantage on X, but have disadvantage on Y. 3 is something piggybacks on you. I guess I should have explained this more, right? So you travel the low road. And this is sort of the low road back to mortality. Or back to the prime material plane. So when you die, your soul traverses this low road and then eventually makes its way back. However, as we see here, things can happen when you're on the low road. There also are spells of the low road at the end of this, and if you know anything about me, spell creation in 5th edition D&D is the one thing that I'm like, I don't do. I homebrew a lot of stuff, but homebrewing spells is something I do very minimally. I feel like, this is just my own personal opinion, I feel they're very hard to balance in homebrew compared to something like a magic item or a class. That may make no sense to anybody else, and I'm fully aware of that, but just for whatever reason, that's the way it is for me. Anyway, Number 3 is when traveling the low road, someone piggybacks onto you. 4 is while you're down there, you bargained your soul away for some reason to someone. 5 is now you basically saw the face of God and you've come back with either unshakable faith or your faith was just rocked. 6 is you were happy being dead. You had received your just reward for passing, and for whatever reason you decided that you're going to come back even though it's reluctant. That was 6. 7 is you're haunted by memories of a past life that you don't remember. And 8 is you come back, but you're hopelessly devoted to a singular cause to take care of that, and then there's subsequent tables you roll on. So I hope that makes sense to everybody. So we're going to go 'Tis But a Flesh Wound, which is number 2, and we'll go with Nerve... let's see, what are our options here? Let's go with Aches with the Cold, right? So paralyzing blow bludgeoned your frame and sprained one of your limbs. This healed imperfectly, and you're constantly reminded whenever the weather grows colder. Tell your DM which limb was sprained, your DM will tell you how it manifests. Your wound gives you advantage on nature checks to predict cold weather, but you have disadvantage on wisdom saving throws against spells and effects which deal with fire damage. And there's other things similar to this. Stranger in your own skin, let's go with Fey Detour. While returning to the mortal shell, your soul took a shortcut through the Feywild, and you basically Fey have paid pranks on you. Your mechanical consequences, you have disadvantage on all saving throws against enchantments. Bargained Soul, we'll go with From Beyond the Stars. An entity beyond your mortal understanding saved you from the afterlife with promises beyond your wildest dreams, but only if you dutifully follow its commands. Tell your DM what's been promised in exchange for your service. The DM tells you how the being has already begun to make good on its promise. Your head is in the stars, you remain aloof and are oblivious to danger. You always have disadvantage on initiative checks. Fervent Believer, this is sort of the, your unshakable faith here, so we're going to go with Inviolable Loyalty. While hovered between life and death, you only saw the realm of your god. You have concluded that all their faiths are varying degrees of falsehood. Tell your DM how you view beliefs held by others in your party. The DM will tell you how you view all other faiths which you encounter. Healing you receive from creatures that do not share your faith is reduced by half, rounded up. Reluctant Returnee. We're going to go with Shot at Redemption because it's right here. Your adventuring lifestyle led you to premature demise. While you expected eternal rest from many good deeds, you were instead faced with judgment of your life of theft, mayhem, and avarice. You sought the mercy of a benevolent entity, hoping for redemption and second chance at life. Tell your DM how your adventuring goals have changed. Your DM will tell you why that's important to the entity that allowed you to return. As you work towards redemption, any monetary reward you receive as part of your path to redemption are either refused, refunded, or donated after your modest lifestyle expenses have been deducted. We have Memories of Another. We'll go with Deposed Ruler. While waiting judgment in the Fugue Plane, you met deceased sovereign of great renown. The deceased sovereign of great renown. Before your return, this ruler conveyed secrets of the kingdom, some of which you can hardly believe. If these hidden truths were divulged to the wrong sources, it could shatter a nation or destroy the world. Tell your DM the identity of the noble you have met. Your DM will tell you at least 3 important secrets that the spirit of this ruler imparted to you. The burden of knowledge is exhausting. You have a disadvantage on wisdom saving throws. That one's pretty rough. We have Single-Minded Focus, and we'll go with Magic here. As the curtains were closing on your existence, you beheld the inner workings of the natural laws of the multiverse. You also perceived magic that transgressed these laws to the benefit of the user. You dedicated your new lease on life to the study of magic for its benefits. Tell your DM why you devoted yourself to the study of magic. Your DM will tell you where or how you can achieve this goal. If not proficient, you must spend your downtime training the Arcana skill. You have disadvantage on all saving throws against arcane spells as you wish to learn more about the magic by experiencing its effects. That's also very rough. And then here we have our Spells of the Low Road. And you can kind of see how the different spells interact. And then there's these spells here, Lighting the Way, Beckoning Guide, and Distant Calling. And then we'll talk about these. So you kind of get the point, right? It makes it so that you can still keep playing the game. Your player can come back as their character and continue to play. But it also, I feel like, shrugs off that, like, oh, screw it. I'll just die and they'll bring me back. And then that'll be fine because there's a there's a downside, right? So I've toyed with this in my homebrew campaign. We kind of have a 3 strikes and you're out rule, right? So it's if you die 3 times, you die for real. And each time you die, your death saving throw save number increases by 1. So it starts off at 10 and 11, 12 before you ultimately pass on forever. But I've been toying with this kind of stuff for a long time too. I may run this by my players and see if they want to use it. I would obviously let your players know up front that this is going to be implemented in your game if you're going to do it. But it could be fun. I think it could be interesting. And there is entire campaigns worth of material, or at least character arcs worth of material. If a character dies and gets afflicted by certain ones of this could write the game for you going forward. If you're like, oh, they're piggybacked on by this creature, and then you write a whole story about that. Or they learned about this ruler and this kingdom that could be fallen if these things are divulged. Now you have a whole new campaign arc to go. So very cool stuff to consider even. And this also may be a thing, like, potentially, that doesn't happen in-game. This could be, as a DM talking with a player, this kind of stuff could happen outside of the game before the campaign starts, and then this is something that's plaguing them when they roll into the game to give their character a little bit more depth, but also to give you more tools in your toolbox of what to throw at them. So we have a couple examples of low roads. We're going to read through both examples, and then we'll call this a day. So, example 1, low roads at the table. Alice, who's the DM, and Tom is the player. Tom, your bard failed his 3rd death saving throw that combat. Now that it's over, what would you like to do? They always said that death was easy. It's comedy that's hard. Since we're agreed to use the low roads optional rule, I'd like to see how Cledwyn comes back. Alright, roll me a d8. 6. This means you are a reluctant returnee. Roll me a d6 to find out why you're coming back to the prematerial plane. 1, which means I have a tarnished legacy. I didn't think that Cledwyn had any legacy to tarnish. Maybe a legacy of bad power ballads. That's a different player chiming in. No, this is good. In death, we're going to find out something new about Cledwyn. In your life, you are dedicated to protecting or preserving an ideal, location, or way of life. Some might call this your legacy. What was it? Tom says, let me think. As you all know, I'm of noble lineage, and the Usherwall family was well known for supplying steeds for the Purple Dragon Knights in Cormyr. While I disappointed my mother by choosing an adventuring lifestyle, my younger brother maintains the family business in Arabelle. Now someone is perverting your family's legacy. As GM, as DM, I get to choose this one. First, however, does anyone have any thoughts for what this may be? Juan, player says, what if someone was burning down his family's stables? After all, we never caught the arsonist in Waterdeep. Alice says, well, that would be unfortunate and perhaps bankrupt the family. I don't see how that would tarnish their legacy. Kelly says, knowing your bard, Tom, it's likely him. He's just not self-aware enough to realize it. Alice says, we should keep it to someone else other than Tom's bard. He's suffered enough as it is. Your mother, then? Maybe she was spurned by you leaving and things went downhill. I think I have several ideas here. Give me a second. Alice writes notes, which she slides it over to Tom. Tom, after reading the note, yeah, that makes sense. You can share as much or as little as you want. Tom says, no, I think it's going to be more interesting to find out together. So Alice's note. Despite being estranged from your immediate family, the Usherwall name still opens doors for you across the realms. Your mother has convinced your brother to enter into the business arrangements with the Zentarum and even the Red Wizards of Thay. As these dealings come to light, the good name of your family diminishes. In our second example, we show how Alice and Juan handled the death of his cleric. While this is framed as a conversation between player and DM between sessions, it could just as easily be handled through email or text. So that was at the table, the first one. This is between sessions. Alice, are you okay? You seemed a little frustrated by your cleric's death at the end of the last session. Juan, yeah, I'm fine. I really like playing Orenthal. Well, we use the low roads rules for Tom. Do you want to roll in the chart? If not, we could talk it out. I don't want to roll for it. I could end up with something that doesn't really fit that would be worse than dying. Does any outcome appeal to you? Bargain soul? You know what? That would be neat. Working through his time on the Fugue Plane and returning a fervent believer. Oh, nice. Okay, so what narrative outcome were you thinking works best? I was thinking Holy Zeal. Your character is a war domain cleric, so this isn't much of a change. What about a continuing obsession? You were dead once, but still send others to their deaths. What if you had a change of faith to a deity that grants the grave domain? That would be a big change. I would need to completely change my playstyle. You were talking about playing another Cleric in Kelly's game. Use this as an opportunity to try it out and see how you like it. It's a good direction and makes a lot of story sense. Let's go ahead and try it. The more I think about it, the more I really like the idea. Excellent. Do you want to tell the rest of the group? If you don't mind, I think I'd like to ease into it by role-playing instead of telling everyone the information. It'll be interesting for them to see the change in the character over the next couple sessions. Alice: no, that's fine. Let's start to add it in when you come to at the beginning of the next session. So that is very cool, and I didn't actually read through the Change of Faith one here, but that's a pretty cool concept, allowing your cleric to completely shift domains halfway through, and this is an example of letting them choose the option rather than letting them roll. So as you can see, there is stuff up in the air for both, and I do, just reading through these two examples really does kind of make me latch to this idea and kind of enjoy it. So I think I could find this as something that I'd incorporate into my game, but I'm curious what you guys think. Would you want to incorporate this in your game? Do you like the idea of this? Do you feel like myself and many others that Dungeons and Dragons death isn't really, like, it's scary? Like, in my group that I play with through this door here every Tuesday night, our party is a fighter, a monk, a rogue, and a barbarian. Death is very real for them. They have a little bit of healing through items and whatnot, but they don't have much in the way of... They have no resurrection magics whatsoever, and they don't have a dedicated healer. So that's sort of the death is real for them. Like, healing potions go a ridiculously long way with them because they don't have any means to regularly heal. But in another game, I have a celestial warlock who's multi-classed with... what is it? The Divine Soul Sorcerer, a Druid, and a Bard. So I have a ton of healing in that campaign, both from classes and from magic items. So for them, death is a little less real because they have one means to heal each other back up, and several of them have access to resurrection-based magic. My Tuesday night party that I play with in real life, they don't. So this may be something good where they don't have to go through the efforts of making an entirely new character. Or possibly through some of this stuff, go through a way where they completely change the way they are because of the experiences they had on the low road. And part of the process with that, I should have mentioned up front, is that time spent on the material plane and time spent on the fugue plane are very different. It may have only been minutes to hours for people on the material plane before they're brought back to life. It may have been months or even years in the fugue plane, so they could have potentially retrained, as it were, an entirely new lifestyle while in their afterlife. So I think it's pretty cool. I think it's definitely worth a $2 pickup if this is something you see incorporating in your game. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll see you guys for the next DM's Guild Spotlight video.